All right, so now let's talk about your hair growth cycle. Now, as you can see from this image, there are four stages of your hair growth cycle. So we have the anagen, which is the growing phase, the catagen, which is the regression phase, telogen resting phase, exogen the shedding phase. Okay? And this diagram explains what happens in each stage, and I'm gonna go through it in more detail. All right, so the anagen phase, right? As you can see here, this is when your hair starts to grow, right? And it determines the length of your hair because it can keep growing anywhere between 2 to 7 years, anywhere between 2 to 7 years, meaning that if you have very long hair, it means that your face it's probably very long. If you have short hair and it's very hard for you to grow your hair, that means this phase is probably maybe 2 to 3 years. And then the next phase is the collagen phase, and that this is where the your hair will stop growing, right? Because it's preparing for the next phase, right? So your hair follicle, which is pretty much the root where your hair grows out of, right, will start to shrink, right? Because this hair is about to come up, right? And then the next phase, again, I'm going to go through this in more detail. The next phase is the telogen phase, meaning the hair is no longer growing, right? It's just not growing anymore, right? And it'll stop growing at this point. And the next phase is the exogen phase, right? This is where your hair will shed, right? And the reason why your hair will shed is because that hair growth cycle has reached its final stop, right? It has reached its final stop, and it's gonna get ready to grow new hair. So let's just get right into it in a little bit more detail. So the first thing you have to note is that each follicle, meaning the hole, right, that your hair will grow out of, would have its own hair growth cycle, right? Every follicle, and it's said that we have at least 100,000 hair growing on our head, right? Meaning that you have 100,000 hair growth cycle occurring at the same time. That's amazing, right? So just keep that in mind. So let's quickly go over this. So the first stage, that's the anagen phase, right? It goes anywhere between 2 to 6 years or more, right? Depending on your genetics, right? And this is the most active phase, because this is when your hair starts to grow, right? And it's the birth phase of your hair. So your hair will pretty much keep growing, keep growing, keep growing, anywhere between 2 to 6 years or more. And then once that phase is done, then it's gonna go over to the next phase, which is the catagen phase. And the catagen phase, this phase is very quick, right? Because it only happens for up to 2 weeks, right? So this is when your hair growth will start to slow down, right? It will start to slow down because it's preparing for the next phase, right? Because as you can see here, the hair it's slowly, right? It's slowly getting detached, right? So the next phase is the telogen phase, right? As you can see here, this is the resting phase, and this is where the hair has completely stopped growing, right? So as you can see here, the hair is so far away, right? And it is resting because your hair is no longer growing, and it's getting ready for the next phase where the hair will leave the scalp, right? Now, the last stage in this hair growth cycle is the exogen phase, and which is this phase right here. Now in this phase, as you can see, the hair it's not even connected to anything anymore, and the reason for that is because the hair will exit from your scalp, right, by shedding, right? So this is when you will experience shedding, right? And the dermal papilla here, right? As you can see, it's no longer connected to the hair. And the same time that this is happening, your hair, because it's a cycle, right? It'll go back to the first stage, which is anagen, right? So that's why we have this image right here. So the same time the hair it's getting ready, right? Old club hair, right? It's getting ready to leave the scalp. We can see this tiny piece of hair that's beginning to grow, beginning to form, right? So again, you can see the dermal papilla right here, right, growing, right? So it'll go back to the stage. So this is very early right now, right? That's why it's called the early anagen, right? And when it comes back here, right, it'll continue to grow. Your hair will continue to grow for up to 6 years or more, again, depending on your hair growth cycle, right? So yeah. So again, like I said, each follicle, right? Each follicle has its own hair growth cycle. Yeah, this image is very funny. That's why I decided to put it there. So each follicle has its own hair growth cycle, and they're all happening, at their own time, right? So you can have one hair follicle that's in the first stage, um, anagen stage, and then you can have the next hair follicle that's in the catagen phase. You can have the next hair follicle that's in the telogen phase, right? Right. So just so you know, and that's the reason why you shed hair every single day, and you only shed about 70 pieces of hair, and not your entire head, right? Because if that were to happen, it means every 2 to 6 years you're gonna go bald, right? But luckily, thank God, so nature and the way God built our bodies, you can only shed just a small amount of hair every day, right? Because you have each hair follicle that has its own hair growth cycle, right? So for those who are thinking, okay, why is my hair not growing? I'm gonna explain that shortly when we get to that stage, right? But like I said, the fact that you are not going bald, right? The fact that you're not going bald shows that your hair is obviously growing, right? Despite the fact that your hair sheds, right? Because as you can see in this stage, as the old hair, when it sheds, you have new hair that's growing, right? And that's just how our body is built, right? So to conclude, if you are not going bald, it means your hair is constantly growing, right? Your hair is constantly growing, right? Because when old hair, when it comes out, then you're gonna see that baby hair that's from, well, maybe not right now, right? But maybe in a few months, right? Then you're gonna see that baby hair that's actually growing out of your scalp. So this just goes to prove that your natural hair is constantly growing, right? Now, I'm going to share the reason why sometimes your hair looks like it's not growing. All right, if you guys have any question that relates to this lecture, leave it in the comment section below. And if you have naturalista friends who haven't taken this course yet, just tag them in the comment section, or you can share the course page with them so they can enroll to join the course. All right, I'll see ya in the next one.